What do you get when the Acolyte is so bad, it can't be defended anymore?
The power of one, two, the power of many.
Well, cope, actually. What you end up reaching is peak cope.
Come.
In Star Wars, canon is just a suggestion. I have seen a lot of opinions about canon. I don't like it. I find it restrictive. I tend to ignore it so I can do something else. But it doesn't exist is an entirely new one that I haven't heard before. And like many of these sort of one-sided points, it's not based out of logic or anything. What we're essentially doing is playing with words and see how far we can widen the definition of them. I mean, when you're saying that Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father is a retcon, well, I think at that point, you've destroyed retcon as a useful word.
Make it make sense.
If just a plot twist in a later episode is now defined as changing continuity, then words mean nothing, and canon is just a suggestion. But what I find interesting about it is the need to try and do that, to go to so much effort to desperately try and protect something, which is clearly awful. We are now down to a 17% audience score. We have reached a level of entertainment where if you say I like it, I don't believe you. At least not liking it for the show itself. Liking it for other reasons, I can entirely understand. For instance, if you're the kind of person that would write articles that include "The Acolyte is already a smash hit," when it comes to representation at least, then I can understand you liking the show, because for you, the quality of something simply comes down to the people within it, rather than the actual show itself. But for everyone else, there's no. Everyone else cares about the actual show, at least in theory. So for those people, what could possibly lead to something like this? To such a farcical statement as this? What could drive you to such desperation? Because this is from Forbes, and even in Forbes, there's a little war going on between the writers. Obviously Forbes, lots of different contributors, all with their own opinions. But it's kind of the extremes of the opinions, which is the interesting part, when they're on the same website. The most disappointing Star Wars episodes ever made. I have a theory that imposters have taken over Star Wars. Maybe they're fans, maybe not, but they're certainly masquerading as good storytellers. The entire episode is a bad joke. I feel like I'm living in an alternate universe reading these critics' reviews, one in which being a critic no longer requires you to be critical. Well, on the other, we don't need canon, we can just say anything. I mean, look, Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father wasn't canon, was it? Because revealing a plot point later on as a twist apparently means canon doesn't exist anymore, or something like that. Don't you understand? I mean, yes, it started as good and evil in space, but now we're adding in moral ambiguity. We're not, by the way. At no point in any of the episodes has that even been suggested. The showrunners having no morals is different than moral ambiguity in a TV show.
You bring one more peasant into my penthouse, Chet, I will throw her off the balcony myself.
Like, oh, it's been introduced but not thoroughly explored. Evil people thinking evil good isn't morally ambiguous. Imagine if the black and white view of Narnia was injected into Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones didn't have moral ambiguity either. And then we end with just a reach of, well, we're experimenting at the moment, and you'll have to obviously wait to the end and view all of those episodes first before you can really judge it. Will it reach the nuanced heights of Andor, where you all fall asleep? And you get hints to the roots of his desperation earlier in the article. What sparked the backlash? Well, first off, there's a whole, bigoted fans and content creators. They dislike how the cast looks and the indoctrinated themes, claiming that the franchise is booting their male fan base. Well, no. The Acolyte was the ones that claimed they were doing that.
In a very woman-centered world, well, I was very excited. Yes. Kind of cool to have like this sort of woman-centered figure.
It was in the interviews.
Perhaps our existence, just like anything that exists outside of the binary, the establishment can find that threatening.
There are lots of interviews about it. But no, this segment of the fandom has been stoking culture war grievances since The Last Jedi. Others would say describing reality.
I like to make men uncomfortable.
Guided by my activism,
I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
2024 now, and I think it's about time that we had a woman to shape the story.
You need to change your attitude.
Why don't you just shut up and let us do what we want? Stop pointing it out with melodramatic critique and frantic thumbnails. And she's like, I don't want to lie. I'm not going to lie. She's like, you really should lie. She's like, no, okay, I'll lie then. I promise I'll lie. You may think my dramatic reenactment was over the top, but actually it's pretty accurate to the script.
I don't want to lie. You have to lie. Promise me. Fine, I promise.
I told you.
You should just shut up.
It's just like
up. I love
that
you. You should shut up.
Don't you know, you shouldn't be entertaining when you describe our evil intentions. What we would like you to do is please just talk in a monotone voice and describe things like it's factually the news. Don't be entertaining, otherwise you might actually get the message out there. You might be effective when countering us, and we can't have that. That's why we're going to call them a meme. Because you see, when we point something out, you should be ashamed and stop it. We have described your YouTube videos, and that means we have power over them, and you should stop doing it. Please stop doing it.
You're gonna make me beg, aren't you?
Very well.
Funniest thing in the next two paragraphs, he goes, well, you know, if we put all that aside, they are basically right. They've accused the Acolyte of breaking canon, which it did, reducing the significance of Anakin, which it did, and they've disliked the way the Jedi have been betrayed, because they've made them look like fools and pretended they're evil. So in other words, not like Jedi. However, this nuanced, critical view, incorrect view, the Jedi can't be evil, otherwise they'd be Sith.
Can't stop me. Yes, I can. How? I'll kill you.
I mean, keep up. It's not difficult, but keep up. It's far from a new development. Don't you see? Star Wars has always been trash. I love that argument. But the most important part of being a Star Wars fan is, of course, bitterly complaining about Star Wars. Is it because Star Wars has been taken over by people that hate Star Wars and can't write? That to write Star Wars, you'd have to get back to the foundations of what Star Wars is and masculinity and male values. And because Disney hate that and despise doing it, they can't actually write Star Wars because Star Wars is literally the epitome of everything they despise. This means that Disney is incapable of making good Star Wars. As the discourse spirals out of control, it's getting harder to ignore. In other words, we're winning, lads. And so because of that, we have to defend it. We are forced to defend it to the point of making ourselves look like absolute complete hacks. I have no integrity. The entire history of the universe is irrelevant. It's whatever we say it is. Yeah, that's not gonna fly. I don't believe you watched episode 3 and thought it was good. In fact, I think this is just the other side of the marketing strategy, which has caused articles like this. It's forced people to cope. As there was the strange marketing for the Acolyte speaks out about the most diverse show. Don't you understand? This has made sci-fi safe for people like Amandla. This is actually about a blurred paradise, making these blurs find themselves safe spaces for authentic expression, helping them harness the most powerful weapon against bullying, narcissism. We've seen this tactic tried before in Star Wars, like Kenobi.
Some of the fan base just sickened me to my stomach. You're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
And Kathleen Kennedy herself came out and tried it with the Acolyte, where she was saying a lot of women struggle in a male-dominated Star Wars world, or when converted out of PR speak, chocolate sales struggle due to a diabetic-dominated fanbase. While Leslye Headland said that I stand by my empathy for Star Wars fans, because if there's one thing that the world associates Leslye Headland with, it's empathy. I want to be clear, anyone who engages in anything I consider bad things, I don't consider a fan. Because people really care about Leslye Headland's opinion on literally anything, but especially putting her in charge of who's allowed to be a fan of Star Wars. I mean, I have heard of getting too big for your britches or having airs above your station, but come on, love.
You are disgusting.
You would make a good Dalek.
I wouldn't care about your opinion on how a steak should be cooked, let alone anything else. The thing is, these attacks on the fanbase are often taken by the fanbase of, why are you attacking me, I don't deserve this, or piss off, we've heard this before. There is the other side of the attacks, though. Well, it's often interpreted as an attack to get people to watch it as, you must watch this or you're a bigot. It also has the other collective approach of creating the in-group of, all those people that don't like it are bigots. They're the people that you don't like. And it gives people the internal reason to defend it as, I don't like those people either. Look, all of us are getting together and we're joining in our unified pleasure at pissing those people off. And so, what do you do if you want to piss those people off? You defend the indefensible. And it's how you end up with opinions like this. Tonight's episode of The Acolyte will incite the Star Wars fanbase in a way few things have in recent memory, I think. But is that because of the quality of the show? Is it because it's so well written, so entertaining, that all of the new modern audience of Star Wars will get together in their enjoyment of the episode? No, it's going to make the piss babies whine, cry, and piss their pants live on YouTube streams. It's going to be wild. Haha, the piss babies are so upset by it. His pleasure didn't come from the episode itself. It came from being in the in-group. It made him feel like part of Star Wars. I'm with the good guys. I'm on the right side of history. And all those people that I don't like are getting annoyed. He didn't get pleasure from Star Wars. He didn't enjoy Star Wars. The enjoyment came from other people's reactions about Star Wars. The right people are pissed off by the thing, so I like the thing. Not that it was inherently good by itself. The entertainment value came from something external to it, not the product. I can even understand this opinion myself. I like Willow because I enjoyed making the videos about Willow. Rather than me actually getting enjoyment from Willow, or as a more succinct summary, their enjoyment comes not from the show itself, but from a malevolent desire to observe others witness the destruction of something they care about. But because they get this enjoyment, it makes them think more about the show. It makes them want to defend it even more, because by them defending it, it pisses off other people. And that's really where their pleasure comes from. And so, you get articles like the Forbes one. Canon's just a suggestion. Is that a genuinely held belief? Or is it simply something to cause controversy? But if I don't have principles, I have goals. My goal is to piss other people off. And so because the Acolyte does that, I'm willing to say anything to defend it. I'm willing to say that Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father was a retcon rather than a plot twist. And the argument for the Acolyte being able to break canon is just it's happened before. And you get articles actively hating the audience because that's where their pleasure comes from. It simply becomes a weapon to beat other people around the face with. They take inspiration from each other, which is why you see the same comments all over the place. No one hates Star Wars more than those who claim to be Star Wars fans. The most important part of being a Star Wars fan is complaining about Star Wars. If they enjoyed the show, they'd talk about the show, but instead, it always comes down to the people that don't like the show. They're the topic of conversation. They're what drives all the discourse, because that is what they enjoy.
With a mob of revolting peasants.
This isn't an article about how much they enjoyed episode 3. It's an article discussing the people that don't like episode 3 and running interference for it. Go on, Tanny. Tell me the best bits of episode 3. Tell me the bits that really made you happy. Tell me the bits you enjoyed. Tell me about the nuanced storytelling.
Leanne, Tony, check your two balls very carefully.
Because episode 3 was largely confusing, it's hard to write any meaning to it. So in an attempt to explain the fragmented pieces and desperately work out where on earth this thing's going, you can come up with theories to try and explain it. But then you find out the truth, then you find out what's actually intended, and it's so much worse than what people are just coming up with on their own. I've spoken previously about people that thought that the lightsabers had meaning, and then Leslye Headland went, nah.
Can you tell me how you specified specific colors for each?
Purely aesthetic.
But then you get the magic dance scene, the chanting, which you're like, well, you know, this is supposed to be magic that they're summoning into being with this very chant. It must mean something, right? No, because Leslye Headland has given an interview where she explains the episode, because it desperately needs it, and it seems like she can't explain it herself, where for one of the problems she said, there isn't an answer to it, whereas the girls are revealed not actually as children, but more as the legacy of what their mother started. There's a very weird storyline being drawn out now that actually it's not mothers, as it said in the first episode.
You lost your entire family. Your mothers.
No, she's the mother, and she just carried them. If you do look back at episode 3, you can get that she's kind of like, no, you're being a bad parent, but she just overrules her in every go. It's because I created them line.
I carried them. I created them.
Was actually, no, I'm the parent. I have a feeling this is basically a surrogacy analogy, that if you carry kids, it doesn't matter. It's the people who made them that matter. Because this isn't just a one-off statement that's made here. In the episode guide itself, it describes them as the twin daughters of Mother and Nisa, Jodie Turner. There is no second mother, the one that carried them. It also confirms that May's fire is what burnt the entire building. So, you know, there's that burning stone again. But it's here that Leslye Headland explains the Coven's mantra. The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Come.
In our show, the Jedi have the power of many, whereas the mother, well, she was just one, the girls are two, and so she wants her legacy to be the power of many, like the Jedi. And you're like, what? So you're not telling me that this is some ancient magical saying and phrase that echoes back through the annals of time and has some kind of mysterious or magical significance? No, she just made it up recently, after her kids were born. That means at one point, this coven literally got together and she go, right, I'm going to tell you our new chant now whenever we do the... Look, I know we did the magic before the chant, but I really would like it if we could just sing when we did it now. I think that'd be fun.
The power of many.
And they're all, yeah, what is it? Well, 1, 2, many? What does that stand for? Well, we're trying to mimic the Jedi. All those covens must have been like, what? But we're probably too busy being off their faces, pulling on their threads to realize.
We were hunted, persecuted, forced into hiding. Come.
And that's if you believe her explanation and don't just think it's her going, well, you know, I wrote some crap and now I'm desperately trying to justify it. A bit like when they take a modern artist and ask them what the light flashing on and off means. Now, that's a genuine question I saw once. It's probably my favorite answer to any art question because he just went, I think it means whatever you think it means. Each person interprets it differently. Leslye, you probably should have said that, really. It would have been deeper, or at least feigned it if you can't come up with it yourself. This is why these articles are just defending the indefensible. You know you have no grounds to defend, but those people I don't like really do like it though, don't they? I think I can wind them up a bit more. I think I can get some more enjoyment out of desperately trying to defend it, just because I know it'll make me the moral person that stands against them. I'm like the knight in armor sacrificing myself. Don't worry, I shall be the martyr.
Yes, 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 yes.
And it is being the martyr, because if those are the explanations that Leslye Headland is coming with, do you really think the rest of the show has some kind of deep analogy to it and even thought about the need to make it make sense? That's how you end up as Polygon, desperately trying to work out what on earth the show meant. It's a silly rock fire is the perfect symbol for its bigger problems. How on earth can we explain it? Well, maybe they made the entire building out of an alternate material. You know that stone base that was made out of stone? Well, maybe the stone wasn't actually stone. Maybe the Coven of Witches coated their interior tunnels with an extremely flammable non-rock material for some reason, as they had lanterns around the base with open flames. By the way, she smashed that lantern. We have spaceships, but haven't developed glass that doesn't break when dropped from hand height yet. Star Wars not invented Gorilla Glass. Either way, we'll just excuse it as something silly and fun. Maybe there was a hidden culprit doing it. Maybe the show is just terribly put together and the person that created it has no talent, which is actually their theory number 3. It's Disney Star Wars. Too concerned with appearances to get the details right, both in terms of storytelling and don't bring up the lore, mate. This is Star Wars. Lore is just a suggestion. Our universe doesn't make sense deliberately. That's an excuse, I think. On paper, this theory would be a profound disappointment. In practice, however, it just feels like what we should expect from modern Star Wars. It's hard not to imagine that the Acolyte's biggest moment so far is nothing more than the rock that inexplicably caught fire because the plot needed it to. Genuinely does seem like the explanation when it says it on Star Wars' own page, and when Leslye Headland's explanation of how on earth do 2 women give birth to 2 twins who are also women, she goes, if you keep watching the show, we do talk about and explore that, but there's not one answer to it. I'm sorry? So you're not going to explain it then? You're not going to give an answer to it? In other words, you don't know. You wrote a story where you don't know what the answer is. That doesn't really sound like somebody that's going to write an episode that makes sense when they haven't even thought of the answer to their own problems. Some characters believe certain things and other characters believe other things. So you're going to have to watch and decide which side of the argument you're on. We're going to talk out both sides of our mouth, come up with contradictory information, and go, that's a plot. We've made it trash deliberately, is the explanation. That's why you can get articles defending this and going, I just enjoy people being pissed off at it. It's almost custom designed just to make this kind of argument happen. And at that point, when you're not even going to give the answer to the problems that you created, really comes across as just our only marketing strategy is pissing people off. That I don't care about Star Wars, I got paid anyway. My pleasure doesn't come from the pride in creating good work. It comes from destroying what you love. It comes from the malevolent desire to destroy something that you care about. The pleasure comes from the response. And so I'm going to write something that causes that response. That's why you get titles like these. It's broken streaming records, despite conservatives crying over it. We don't take pleasure in it breaking records. We take pleasure in the people complaining about it. Which is why they'll say anything, defend anything, and why these shows can sink to new levels of depravity, new levels of absolute trash, and they still get defended. They still come out with the high critic scores, which are so bewildering that it makes some critics feel as if they're living in an alternate universe. Because while Eric Kane is reviewing the show and describing what he watches, everyone else is simply enjoying all the things that they know other people won't like. Because while Eric may try and judge things critically, judge things objectively as the product that they are, the others don't have principles, they have goals, and so are willing to say anything to defend the product. That's why you'll never hear them talk about the contradictions, such as Amanda Stenberg calling out the racist idea that people like her all look the same, despite the fact that in the show they did that exact same thing. They're supposed to be identical. They literally just grabbed 2 kids and were like, no one will know the difference. They all look the same anyway. You'd think something like that would be caught out by the virtuous, by the people who are always on the right side of history, except this time, because when we say things, we don't actually mean them. We simply say them to achieve the goal. And the goal this time isn't to talk about our enjoyment of Star Wars. They're not talking about how amazing Episode 3 was. Did you see that story twist? I never saw that coming. That was great. It's simply simply to run interference, to defend the things that other people are saying they don't like. The focus is on the fans, not the episode. Well, this review spoke about the episode. This one is simply trying to add an element of mystery into it, a middle layer to go, oh, well, you may think this is a problem, but Star Wars has always had problems. It's not even bothering to deny that they are problems itself, because that's not the point. The point is to wind people up, to annoy them, to get them to respond, because like an angry, underdeveloped child, it just wants attention, and it doesn't care whether it's good or bad attention, and just enjoys causing trouble, which I think by any Star Wars analogy would 100% be part of the dark side. Gaining enjoyment from people witnessing the destruction of what they care about isn't a good thing, but it is interesting how they get so much pleasure from upsetting people, but really despise people accurately describing what they're doing. Pointing out their tactics and taking the piss out of them is their weak point. This is simply an attempt to humiliate and shame and make them a figure of fun, when really that's what they're doing to you, because that is the key to all of this. If you get angry and upset, if you rant and rave, it essentially feeds the hateful, evil trolls. But if you laugh at them, if you humiliate them, if you make them the figure of fun, if you take the product of their labor and show it to be the farcical mess that it is, the product of people who don't deserve to be there, who couldn't have earned their positions in a million years. If you bring back the elements of society, of shame and humiliation through laughter and comedy, that's the weak point. That's what they despise. And coincidentally, that's also the way you get entertainment from their show, because they may laugh at people's reactions to them burning things, and I'm just laughing that this is their best attempt to create something. This is the best top-level thing that you're capable of doing in life, and it's awful. This is the pinnacle of everything their ideology can create, and I still look at it and think, I wake up every day glad I'm not you. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.